Hi, and welcome to Brick by Brick Wealth. My name is Casey, and today I'm going to tell you what I wish I knew before I started buying rental properties. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell so you can be notified of future real estate videos on rental properties. And if you're watching this on Instagram, please like, comment, and share this video to your feed. Okay, let's get started. The first thing I wish I knew before buying rental property was not to nickel and dime everything. When we were first starting to look for rental properties, we would nickel and dime, and we would, the seller, and we would try and get the best price possible. And we lost a deal over a couple $1,000s. In hindsight, why did we do that? A couple $1,000s is chump change in the scheme of things, and we shouldn't have been so picky. Be picky, yes, on the types of investments that you're going to buy, but don't lose a deal over a couple $1,000s. It's just not worth it. Get the deal and just move on. Buy properties as is. Expect to do repairs. Don't nickel and dime the seller into fixing an outlet or painting a fascia board or, I don't know, replacing carpet. As an investor, expect to do the work yourself, buy the property as is, and move on. Do not nickel and dime for repairs. Although in the inspection period, when you get your inspection report, I don't mean not to ask for more money. I mean, don't ask the seller to fix this. Just say, hey seller, I want X $1,000 off and I'll fix it all yourself, take it as is. You can use that strategy. Also, don't lower your standards with tenant qualification. When you get your first rental property, you're going to be anxious. You're going to put the sign in the yard, the for rent sign, and you're going to every single day be like, oh my gosh, no one bought it. No one's renting it. What am I going to do? Let me just rent it to anybody. Because you're going to be worried thinking, no one wants to rent my house. I've gotten calls, but none of them are qualified. And you're going to start to lower your tenant qualifications. Just don't do that. It's super important that you pick the right tenant the first time. If you pick a bad tenant because you're in a rush, you're going to get bad tenant experience. And then that might make you not ever want to buy another property again. If potential tenants have a bankruptcy on their record, they have a previous eviction, they have shoddy work history, and they bounce around from job to job working at Target and then a furniture store and then, a school janitor, that's just not going to be a dependable tenant that you can rely on for steady income. You need someone that has strong rental history that can prove that they've paid rent in the past. If you get someone that maybe has a decent job but doesn't have the greatest credit because, they just don't have a credit card and they're scared of credit cards, and then they've been living with mom and dad for the past, 5 years, I would be wary of renting to them. You might want to rent to them on the promise that they're going to be great renters because their job's okay and they promise that they pay on time and their credit's not good, well, because they don't have a credit card. Just don't do it. Don't go there. Don't lower your tenant qualification expectations because you're scared you're not going to get an A-plus tenant. The tenants will come along. And if you don't get your A-plus tenant within a couple weeks, maybe your price is too high. You might need to reevaluate your rental market and see if you need to adjust your rental asking price. Tenant selection is one of the most important things that I harp on my students that they have to get right, because the tenant that they choose is going to make or break their destiny with real estate rental investments. And I have for you a free tenant guide. If you're on YouTube, it's in the description box below. There's a link. If you're on Instagram, there is a direct link in my bio, because it is super important that you pick the right tenant. Another thing that I wish I knew before I started investing in rental properties was to know my local tenant qualification market. You see, out here in Memphis, which I didn't realize until I started investigating more into rental property management companies, is that the property management companies have the regular tenant qualifications that we all have. Make 3 times the rent, have a good credit score, have a steady job, show proof of rental history. But you know what they also require out here? They also require that you are in good standing with your utilities company. Out here we use Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, which is MLGW, and property management companies require that potential tenants be in good standing with the utilities company. Because what some people do, and what happened to us, was that, and this is hilarious because we had a tenant and we didn't check that, and she actually was a 15-year employee for the MLGW utilities company. Well, this lady, she was a perfect tenant on record, but we did not check to see if she was in good standing. You guys won't believe this. The lady was not in good standing paying her utility bill, and she even worked for that company. I mean, are you serious? She stayed in our place for 6 months. She had a 2-year contract with us, 2-year lease agreement. She stayed for 6 months, and then she left because utilities got shut off. She even worked for the company. So I do wish I would have known beforehand to check the local tenant qualification rules of what everyone else is checking, because that could have saved me a huge headache. Luckily, the lady kept the place pretty clean, so it was easy to turn around and rent out again. Another thing is, do whatever it takes to keep your good tenants. You don't want to make them mad and have them move out because you're increasing their rent $25, $50, $60, $100 a month. They may complete your lease of 1 to 2 years, and then it's time to raise the rent. But guess what? As soon as you start talking rental increases of $50 or whatever, they're going to leave. And then you're going to have hundreds or thousands of dollars in tenant repairs or property repairs because of your tenant for your property, plus time that your property will be vacant, that you won't be renting it out. So you're going to lose a lot more money than that extra $50 a month you were going to get from your tenant. If you have a good tenant that pays on time and keeps the property nice and clean, think twice and think hard about raising the rent. And if you do, what types of deals are you giving your tenant? You want to make it a win-win situation. What we've started to do is, if we have a good tenant, we do feel like we need to increase rent over time because of inflation. So if we have a good tenant, we will say, look, if you do a 2-year lease agreement with us, we will only raise your rent 3%. If you do a 1-year lease agreement, we'll raise it 5% for inflation. But because you're such a good tenant, we'll give you a discount if you pay early. So in the end, they basically are paying what they were paying before, which is a good tactic. It's a win-win for us because we're raising the rent, but if they pay early before the first, then they're basically getting their rent for the same price as before, and they are loving that idea. The other thing I wish I would have done differently was that I wish I hadn't been so nice to my tenants. You know, you give them an inch and they take a mile. You start letting them be late with payments one time and they think it's okay to be late again and again and again. You have to be very careful on when you allow your tenants to be late without penalty, because they will make up excuse after excuse. Grandmothers will have died like 10 times over just so they can pay their rent late for free. They have the money, they're just choosing to spend it in other ways or in other places. So you have to make sure that you lay down the law. We had a tenant who we let her be almost $5,000 behind. Thankfully, I do have a decent judge of character. She did have some issues, you know, in life, and she did get caught up, and she currently is an on-time paying tenant. But it was a miracle, and I can tell you that it was a headache for the past year with her, and I will never do that again. It's just not worth my time and my headache. It's just not. Don't be too nice with your tenants. Stay strict to the lease, and then life will be better for you. Another thing I do wish I would have known in advance is that if you're only charging first month's rent and deposit, then they're going to use that deposit to pay their last month's rent. In some markets, you can pay first, last, and deposit. But for a lot of people, that's over $3,000, and that's just too much and they can't afford it. And I understand that. So I was doing first month's rent plus security deposit, which ended up being equal to 1 month's rent. The problem with that is when they decide to move out and it's their last month, they'll just use that deposit and they'll say, oh, well, you can just make my deposit, use my deposit for last month's rent. That's not how it goes, guys. And they know that, but they also know you're not going to fight them on it and that they're going to get away with it. So be prepared. If you are only charging first month and security deposit, be prepared that they will use the security deposit as their last month's rent payment. They know that you're not going to go hunt them down and make them pay for it. The other thing I really had no idea about was that people break leases all the time. Not everybody is going to stay true and promise to follow through to the very end and stay the 1 year or stay the 2 years or whatever your agreement is. If they feel like leaving, they're just going to get up and go. I've had that happen multiple times where people we have an agreement, we sign a lease agreement, and they just get up and they leave. And they just move out and they say, I moved out. Well, what are you going to do? And they know you're not going to do anything. If they left the house clean and they paid up until they left, what are you really going to go fight them in court for? I mean, what are you going to go do? Go track them down in court and sue them for not completing their contract? You can do that. You can, and it's going to be costly. And if those people hardly even have jobs in the first place, then there's not going to be anything to collect from them. Good luck. And they know that it's not worth it. They know if they leave the place clean, and they know that if they have paid up until their day that they've left, or even close to it, that you're not going to go after them and it's just going to be a wash. I really had no idea people just broke leases all the time. Now, obviously, the higher up in rental prices you go, the better quality of tenant, the less likely they're going to be to do that. So that was definitely an eye-opener for me. Another thing that I wish I would have known before investing in rental properties and before buying one would be to include the property management fees when I'm doing my due diligence and figuring out, all the numbers. Now, we had always planned on managing the properties ourselves, and our properties be way over the 1% rule. We make good cash flow, good cash flow on all of our properties. So I don't need to sit here and count for every little vacancy and sit and count for every little expenditure that might happen. If I have to write down that many negatives to see if I'll cash flow enough, that property's not worth it for me. I need to have a cushion. I need to make a good chunk of change a month so I don't have to worry about all the little minute, expenses that I'm going to have. So one day you might not want to manage your own properties, and you'll want to make sure that you have that 10% cushion saved in there meant for property management fees in the future. If you're looking to create passive income with rental properties, you really need to check out my free mini course that I have spent countless hours and a lot of time pouring my life into. You can find it if you're on YouTube, in the description box below, or in the Instagram link in my bio. I also have a new Facebook group, Create Passive Income with Rental Properties. That's just for myself and aspiring investors, so I can help guide you on your journey to cash in your first rent check. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video below, subscribe to my channel, or share this video on Instagram. Thank you for watching Brick by Brick Wealth.